All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Jacket Jockeys with Justin.
And me, the other jockey. What? Everybody.
Every time. Every time.
When it's not you.
That's your signature move.
It is I.
Okay. You
Jen with.
just don't like to introduce yourself.
I
It's
don't.
fine.
It's weird. Jen with a J. It's just because I'm normally
You mean Gen?
Gin with a J. Gin with a gay. It's normally I'm introduced by others, when I go on to late night shows and things. So I just don't
Yeah.
have a lot of experience introducing myself. But
Gosh.
yes, I like long walks on the beach. Uh, I'm a Scorpio. That's the
Yikes.
sound of my scorpion tail
The
stinging
stinger
you.
going
Yes,
going
going right into your face.
into your face. Yikes.
Well, here we are in episode key.
Episode. Hey, you spoiled it. Season
Sorry.
two. Today we're going to be discussing season two, episode six of Showtime's Emmy-winning series. I don't know if it actually won Emmys.
It won
Yellow
an Emmy in my
Jackets.
heart, but not this episode.
Key,
Key
key,
and Kiev.
Qu'est-il?
Yeah,
Ou
yeah.
qu'est-elle?
I guess I
Qui
guess
sont-ils?
I guess as I'm saying it out loud, the key, which of course our francophone listeners will know me too,
Who?
who
Who?
perhaps refers to the island spirit, the wilderness god, who is now maybe a big theme of the last episode and this episode is this idea that they brought it back with them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. That
I
would
don't
make
know
sense.
because at first, we watched the episode and then I saw the title and I was like, "Okay." Um, by which, of course, I mean I don't understand the meaning of that title. I just, yeah, I realized I needed to be more linguistically inclusive with that micro joke. Yeah, I don't get it. What do you think the title's about? Tell us in the comments. But what do you? I'm pointing to you.
Me.
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I mean, I think your theory is as good as any. I don't have a better. I mean, the baby, like that's the only other.
But the baby. So, oh God. Well, maybe let's revisit the title after we've talked about this disappointment of an episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's safe to say that this is probably the worst episode of the season.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I
agree.
didn't hate it. I mean, it had moments. It wasn't horrible. It's just it does this one thing.
Yeah, yeah. The worst episode of Yellowjackets is still better than the best episode of most of the shows that are
Yeah, and in this case that's true because we're not talking about Stranger in a Strange Land here. We're not talking about
Ooh.
Fire Plus Water. We're not talking about,
These are sick burns that you're doling out. And there were some Lindelof moments, but once we
yes.
realized that so much of the episode is essentially a dream sequence, that eliminated some of the Lindelofy moments, which I guess we'll get to as we talk about. But two
Yeah.
prominent things that were a long time coming happened in this episode. Um,
Yes. I think I know the two things you mean.
well, let's hear if you mean the same ones that I mean.
We finally got to check in with Nugget,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
we got a
again,
yeah, again, another
another
nice
Nugget
shot of back
check in.
pocket shot.
That's a long time
Oh my
coming.
god. We had to wait an extra week to see Nugget again, which was really hard. I had to go on the internet and watch cute videos of mice. Luckily the internet always obliges. So yes, that was one of them. And the second?
And the second is obviously we found out that Matt the cop has fictitious weird ass balls.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the kind of thing that once she says it, you know that you always knew, right?
He's got the face of someone who.
He's got the mustache of someone with some weird balls. Maybe one of his balls has a mustache too. Maybe that'll be her
Now that would be
guess.
weird. That would be
That would
weird.
be weird. It's got
That
to be
would be
something
weird.
weird.
We're gonna have to talk about that a lot later.
Well, two other things of less
It's gonna be at
importance.
least an hour on that. Anyway, go
For
ahead.
sure. Well, save some of it for the episode where they go to trial.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Can't
Yeah,
wait. Yeah.
it's definitely gonna
I'm
happen.
going to specifically address that later.
Yeah, we'll
If you
get
can
some
handle it.
courtroom illustrators on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I don't
please.
think that courtroom illustrators draw what people are saying,
They
but
should though. No,
we'll
I
bring
figured
in
they
our
would
own.
make him like drop trow, as they say, and demonstrate to the court
Yeah,
one way or the other.
that's definitely what happens in for real trials. Um, America,
No, it's for the law.
it's for the law. Yeah, two other things happened, not as important
Oh,
as
like
seeing
what?
Nugget
I don't
again.
remember.
Uh, Finally, they all converged on Lottie's cult,
They
which
had
we
a
have
reunion.
predicted.
Yeah,
All of America had predicted.
yeah, yeah,
And we finally find out what's going to happen with the baby.
yeah,
And I've been saying for a while now, they blew their chance to nip the pregnancy in the bud in a logical moment. They built it up so much that they were going to have to do something really big to justify keeping the pregnancy going for this long and milking all that drama. This is a specific instance of a type of thing that shows like this, mystery based shows, you know uh serialized shows do, where they want to wring drama out, and then they pass a point, not of no return, but a point where it's like, okay, well, it's got to be something really good now. And the way they chose to address the bind that they put themselves into was a dream sequence. Right, they knew, like we knew, that it's not good enough to just have the baby be stillborn, right? That you need something more. But I feel like they didn't want to do what it would take to make a stillbirth good enough to warrant the belaboring of the
yeah,
plot.
yeah.
So they gave us this instead, where it was like, well, what are some different things that we could do? Let's weave a little of that into a hallucination, and then have like the most kind of logical thing happen, which is that you can't look. They've not. This has not been ideal pregnancy conditions in terms of prenatal care. So it's not surprising
Yeah,
that it's a stillbirth. But we are watching a show,
yeah,
and it's like, there's so many things they could have done that would have been more interesting, but I think they don't want to deal with the consequences.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I think the problem. I mean, there's a couple of problems with it. There's many problems with it. I don't even know where to start. Uh, you know, like the one thing is the flash forward problem. It's a foregone conclusion that the baby's not going to survive. We know that somehow, right? And I think number two is like they clearly did not.
I'm going to push back on that, because I had a thought at a certain point, maybe early in this episode. I was like, oh shit, what if they pull a Lost and Lottie raises the baby as her own?
Someone else takes the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
no, specifically Lottie.
yeah. Sure, sure,
Because
sure.
she, they in what we find out is a
But she
dream
was in the
hallucination.
institution all that time. Like, I don't know if that.
I- I'm not saying that it's logical. I'm saying that is a thing that they could have done that would have been more interesting. Lottie assumes possession of the baby using the power of the cult that is accelerated in this episode with that, and we'll get to it, but that crazy moment where Travis pulls the skull off the
Oh
wall
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
drips blood, and
And
she's
that
like,
was real. That was real. I
that
was
really
very
happened.
careful when I went through this summary to delineate where the dream starts because it's actually quite clear. If you watch the episode, there's a specific fade to black at a certain point
Yeah.
where after that it's clearly the dream, and it's also clear when the dream ends.
Yeah.
And so that scene is before all that.
Yeah.
So I'm like 99% sure that that actually happened.
Yeah. That happened. And there were Rosemary's Baby vibes going into this episode.
Yeah, yeah.
And no, nothing like that. It's like they didn't really want Lottie to sacrifice the baby to the wilderness gods. It's like
That's what I was
which I
gonna
understand
say.
they don't want to do that. But yeah, go ahead.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I think they didn't really, I mean, they've got plenty coming that is going to be horrifying and so on, and it definitely seems like they did not want to. I feel like it's like once you go down baby sacrifice or eating a baby, like how is anything not going to seem not as bad
Yeah,
after
it's
that?
too much. It's
You know,
too
so I feel
much.
like there's at least that it's some combination of that and just not wanting to do that plot, period,
Yeah.
regardless of how well it works, like keep the baby alive until the end, and then, in a moment of desperation, they sacrifice or eat the baby or something, later.
Yeah.
Like they could have done that too, you know.
Eating a baby's not going to get you very far anyway. But
I
yeah,
know, I know.
it's you can't redeem a character who has killed a baby.
Yeah, and
I mean, well, yeah,
it's clear from the dream sequence that they knew that this was like, you know, hovering in the air as a possibility, because it's like what happened, and if it wasn't miscarriage, stillbirth, or something like that, then, if the baby was actually born, like how long did it survive, and how did it in
yeah,
the end not I agree that, like, okay, I agree that, like, technically it was possible that they give us another answer. But what I would say to that is, if they did give us another answer, then I think it still would have been. I mean, it would have been because they know that we expect that that the baby must have died. Like, it would have been for a twist. It would have
oh
been the
sure,
same idea with Aaron and Lost. Where they do it to throw us.
yeah. Well,
Like,
right. I mean, they don't.
you're
Yes, it would
supposed to
be.
think the baby didn't survive, even if, like, they could have done something else. It's
Yeah,
true.
but I would have much preferred a twist as long as it's not just like, I mean, a really terrible twist. I don't want them to do the Aaron thing. I don't want them to do something that I would have guessed. It's just that what they did, I argue, is the most boring, cheating thing that they could have done. They did the most boring, straightforward thing, baby's stillbirth,
Yeah.
but they try to trick us by incorporating some ostensible personal growth, though it didn't happen. So it wasn't, that confrontation with the baby. I'm sorry, I didn't want you, but I want you now. That didn't happen, right? So there's no personal growth there. Like, she wakes up from her dream wherein she has that moment, and she's like, "Don't you hear the baby crying?" So like that didn't happen. Okay, her fears
Oh, that did
about
happen. That's after she wakes up.
no, I'm talking about the "I'm sorry, I didn't want you"
Oh,
didn't
okay.
happen.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. No, the point I'm trying to make is that when she is blacked out, various things happen that once we realize this is what she's seeing in her blackout phase, it's just in her mind, but it's fulfilling some things from a story point of view ought to happen. It's showing her fears about Lottie in relation to her baby, and the idea that Lottie might have a greater claim to her baby, right? So she can't get her baby to stop crying, but Lottie does. She can't nurse her baby, but Lottie successfully nurses her baby. And she has this closure with the baby where she says, "I'm sorry, I never wanted you, but I want you now." And we also get to see a little glimpse of how truly tedious and problematic it would be to have a newborn in a starving situation in the cold ass middle of nowhere. And all that shit didn't happen. And then she wakes up and she does not know what has happened. None of that closure, none of that personal growth actually happened outside of that hallucination. She wakes up thinking that she can hear her baby. She's waking up in psychological torment. So,
Yeah. Well, so I mean, like I do like partially disagree with what you said. Like I think, if it's a dream, I mean, the one thing you can say about a dream is it's inside a character's mind and it reflects their psychology and what they're thinking about and so on. I do think that we can take the dream as indicating some internal struggle that Shauna was having about the baby and what it meant to her. And I think the resolution she comes to is meant to be real. And in a way, I feel like they do that because they want to ratchet up the drama and the tragedy of when she wakes up because she has, through her dream, learned to accept having this baby and
Yeah.
like wanting it to be alive and take care of it, like she has this moment. And so when she wakes up, she's gone through. I feel like it's
Yeah.
supposed to be true that she went through that in her mind, and therefore it influences that ending scene. So
I
that's
see
the
what
only
you
thing I
mean.
sort of disagree with.
No, I mean I agree with what you just said. I don't mean I guess maybe I misspoke slightly because the tragedy of that is that ostensibly she went into labor not wanting a baby,
Yeah,
and then she woke up from blacking out with with a new sense of regret and tragedy,
yeah,
which is it is sad, and it is, I mean, it does add drama for sure, because I guess without that it's like, well, it's hard to believe, it's hard to see this as anything but a relief, because how were they going to really care for the baby? How could this baby possibly have survived, let alone thrived?
yeah,
um
definitely.
but yeah, I just think it's a cheap thing to, yeah, give us a dream sequence.
Um, yeah, I I mean I agree. I agree, but there is a part of me that is kind of really like, it's like it's one of those things where I actually I was talking about this. I was listening to the Lost Lowdown with Claude and Justin the other day.
What's that?
It's a podcast about Lost. Check it out, everybody. Rate and review. I would say that at this point. Review this podcast, right? This is the new one. We only got
Smash,
two. Come on.
smash the upvote.
Angie Q, if you're out there, give us a review.
Oh my god.
Anyway, I was talking about what was the thing I was talking about? I think it was um this is a good
Should I
question.
start guessing? Was it the blast storm app?
No, no, no,
Was it
no.
the
It's
numbers?
it's from the end of season 3, if that helps. I actually might not even remember what it was.
This is
Um,
like really becoming a great story.
Yeah, no, no, no. I'll get to the point. Like, I think it was either Charlie dying, or it was uh the flash forward, talking about the flash forward happens in the season 3 finale, and this is the commentary I'm listening to. So we already know what the full outcome of it is.
Mm-hmm.
So at a certain point, yeah, so I don't remember specifically what I was referring to, but I said like something that like I thought I felt really resonated with this episode, which was like I hate in a TV show when like that there's a thing that has to happen for the show to move forward, and it's just kind of inevitable, and like it's not it's just a matter of getting past it. Actually, no, I remember what it was now. It was Locke's dad. It was Locke's dad being on the island, and like Sawyer has to kill Locke's dad. Like it was like, okay, we just have to like get through this so we can progress
Right.
beyond it.
Right.
And I realized like, yeah, that's kind of how I felt about the baby. Like I just kind of wanted them to be done with that so we can move on to
Yeah.
stuff that I find more interesting in the show. Like I think the pregnancy in general, I think pregnancy plots are rough on shows, and I think specifically in the context of this show, the way they set it up like made it a thing that was like an albatross around the show's neck. So
Yeah.
in that sense, like I'm kind of glad that we can now move on from that.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's the upside for me. But I do agree that, and this is like Nikki and Paulo or something. The thing I always say, like, if you're gonna commit to something, then you need to actually, don't just toss it off. Don't make it too easy on yourself. Like that's kind of a cheat. So on the other hand, like I do feel like, I wish they had found a more interesting way to do a send off. My endless complaint about, something like Fight Club or Usual Suspects or whatever. And Usual Suspects is the worst version of this,
You
but
just lost a lot of listeners.
there's sorry. The movie isn't without merit overall, but it's got a fundamental fatal flaw, which is that
Triple
uh
F.
the entire what?
Triple F.
Yeah, hey. Which is that like most like 90% of what we see on screen is some bullshit that a character made up. In that case, I feel it's even worse than a dream sequence because at least a dream sequence has psychological content.
Yeah.
At least a dream sequence tells you something about a character.
Yeah. You're not just watching them like, wow, this guy's a great
Yeah,
storyteller.
it's a bullshit story he made to fool the cops. Like there's
Uh huh.
no there we don't learn nothing from
Yeah.
that
It's like
story.
Big Fish. Isn't that the plot of Big Fish? He's like telling a story. He's telling
Oh, you're
sort
probably
of
I've never
religious
seen it, but
story.
you're probably
But
right.
that's the point of that movie, that you know it going in, that it's this framework thing, and like, I shall tell you the story, like a Arabian Nights or something.
Sure,
Like,
sure.
sit down and listen to me spin this tale.
Yeah, yeah.
Except you don't know it from the beginning. I think I I think I agree with you 100% about the about what you're saying. It's like, I think there's an equilibrium, and it's not always in the same place. I'm holding my hands in a certain way that you can't see. But it has to do with time invested in building it up and satisfaction of the payoff. And for me, doing it this way, it was just way out of whack. They could have given us this, and I would have been totally content with it if there'd been less investment in drawing the pregnancy out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they do a baby shower.
yeah,
There's been like multiple weeks of stuff and
yeah, and this, but especially baby shower is one thing, but especially like her waking up in Lottie's like talking to her fetus,
yeah, yeah,
like that kind of thing. Like
yeah,
that's the kind of thing that really ratchets the stakes up, and then
yeah.
it's a wet fart.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that right away
Yeah,
actually.
well, shall we?
Because you wanna dive in? You wanna go ahead and dive
Up to
in?
you.
All right, so real quick, the usual weekly check-in, zero postcards, zero Jessica Roberts. Once again,
Yeah.
will they ever be mentioned this season? This is a question I seriously have at this point because we don't have that many episodes left. I believe there's only 3.
Oh,
So
then what are we gonna do?
I don't know. I mean,
And then what about the writers' strike? What if we never get any more?
honestly, like that's something I was thinking about because I saw, uh, I was looking at, I think it was the Wikipedia page where they were talking about the development of season 2, and there was an article from May of 2022, and they were like, "Yeah, we're just getting started on the scripts for season 2," and I was like, "Oh shit, that could be."
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely a very real possibility. Like, I think the good news is that I don't think they're in production for season 3, which means that it won't be like a truncated thing that they then like what I think what it's probably most likely going to mean is a delay. Like we don't get season 3 until summer 2024 or fall depending on how long the strike is. Like I think that's the most likely outcome is that, so that's a good news to me. Like if they have done any writing for season 3, it's probably pretty minimal, which means that like they'll have the time once the strike is presumably it'll end at some point. Once the strike ends, presumably they'll be able to develop the full season without having to like re like
Mm.
retake up some stuff that they did before
Yeah.
and like bullshit their way, or like we don't have as many episodes now, we gotta hurry up and just do in two what we were gonna do in five, or
Yeah, yeah.
like
I love you're like assuming that it ends. I that just sent me on this like short little fantasy of, ooh, what if they bring in scabs? And then I thought about the clearly not professional writers who wrote the first half of the final season of Picard. Um, I mean, maybe using Chat GBT, maybe using refrigerator magnet poetry. I don't know. Just absolute garbage. And then I started thinking
put it
about,
on my tab.
oh God, tabs. We used them 300 years ago. That's my Patrick Stewart impression. I know you're really
You
impressed.
also heard my Patrick Stewart, which is equally
Yes,
excellent.
yes. Engage. Um, yeah, yeah. Let's give them what they want because the good ones are really good. That's all. That's my political statement.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's not ideal, and I do think, yeah, the timing probably means a delay. Oh well, what are we gonna do? The good
Oh my
news
God.
is season two's done. Season two's in the bag,
We might have to
and
find a hobby.
all we need to
What should
do
we
is, we're gonna get through the season, and
canasta?
when we'll be back after this season is,
Golf?
anybody's guess.
Take
Yeah,
up take up golfing?
let's take up golfing. All right. Anyway, so I just wanted to say, now that they're reunited at the camp and there's going to be some backs and forths, I think if the postcard doesn't come up in this context, then I'm going to just give up that it ever will. Because this is the last chance where it's like, if they don't talk about it here, like, what, like, when are they going to be talking about it later, all right, so whatever. So then we go into previously on.
What if Nugget wrote the postcards? You just staring at me.
Sorry, I didn't expect that. I mean,
Because he's a
I don't
mouse?
think mice live that long. I mean, I don't know the lifespan of a mouse, but I just kind of doubt.
This had not occurred to me.
I just kind of doubt that it would still be alive 25 years later.
Wow.
If it does indeed survive the wilderness, which would be
Wow.
pretty amazing since, you know,
No, I do. You know my prediction that Mari is going to sacrifice Nugget.
Nugget's momski is clearly not going to survive. So
Oh, I can't.
I'm just saying. I'm just
Stop! This
saying.
is really sad. Let's
I'm
get through the
sorry.
first episode. I'm suddenly sad.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know looming tragedies all around.
Yeah, Akila's too good to live. Mari's too mean to live.
I thought it was funny that Mari in this episode was actually less mean. Like
Was
she has this
yeah.
moment where she's like, "Please, wilderness, don't let Shauna die," and they all chastise her for saying that. But like, it's the sentiment is good there. Like she's not being mean there. It's a very genuine like.
She's not mean like I want someone to die mean. Although, but I guess we're gonna get there.
Yeah, I
Because
just
Tommy's
like she
awful.
came across so harsh in some of the previous episodes. Like
Yeah,
it struck
it's
me that
yeah.
you know
Well, a big thing with this episode is how the the extreme event of Shauna going into labor changes the various characters.
yeah. Okay, sorry. I didn't actually start yet.
No, I know. I'm
Okay.
still stuck on Nugget.
So in the previously on, I just wanted to comment on the previously on a little bit. Like one thing I realized watching the previously on, especially they show the whole thing with the van getting stolen and Shauna going to get it back and the gun and stuff like that they reference. Like this was the moment after, because this is the second time I watched it that I wrote these notes. This is the moment where I was like, oh, now I understand what they've been doing this season with this character. Like they've been pushing her on a path where it's going to make sense for her to go to Lottie's camp. Like I should have realized that, but it really crystallized in this episode with Jeff's like, you need to go to Lottie's camp, like
Yeah.
you got some issues.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And like I finally understood like, oh, that's what they've been building up with all this. Cause like so far it's been like character business and not uninteresting, but it hasn't been clear what the direction of that is because it doesn't really lead to anything. It's like the van gets stolen, she gets the van back, she's got a gun now. Now the gun's in that glove box and it's at the camp, so there's a Chekhov's thing happening there. But anyway, in terms of like why would she go to Lottie's camp? Like at the beginning of the season, there's no particular reason why she'd want to go there except out of curiosity, but they push it to a place where it's like her character development suggests going there or Jeff's gonna be like, you gotta go,
Yeah.
like you're out of control, and she'll agree, so like that's anyway, it was like it really stood out to me watching the previously on because I'm like, oh, okay, that's why you showed this stuff because it really isn't directly relevant. It's more like relevant on a character arc level. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. And then the other thing about the previously on that got me was like they show all those creepy scenes of Lottie, like Lottie talking to the baby, Lottie giving Shauna the blanket with the symbol on it, right? And this is manipulative.
So manipulative.
This because it's setting us up to not realize it's a dream sequence because the dream sequence stuff is what follows from the previously
Yep.
on. Of course, it makes sense because it's in Shauna's head. It's not that it doesn't work, but I do think this is like meant to mislead the audience about what we're seeing in
Definitely.
this episode. And it really stood out the second time I watched it. I'm like, yeah, you're not really following that up because, like, awake Shauna, Lottie doesn't do anything creepy in this episode. All her creepy stuff. I mean, okay, we can argue about the skull, but I think like compared to the blanket and the whispering, what she's doing there is, I think, less creepy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's consistent with her world view that she's got right now about the power of the island.
Yeah,
Um, you know, pulling them together in a kind of prayer circle for the baby. I mean, right? Doesn't she do
yeah,
that? Yeah,
yeah.
so I think
She tries to do that. It,
yeah.
it kind of it kind of fails, and yeah, the
Hmm.
skull thing is a separate thing that they do kind of apart.
And the skull thing, I'm like, Travis.
Yeah, well, he's clearly in deep.
Yeah.
And that's clear from the future. So, and actually the general question of the survivors and how they thought about what they did in the wilderness, what they believed afterwards. I think that's actually an interesting question that I want to come back to a bit more because there's some lines from Van about Lottie in this episode that really struck me as a change from the way she's talking about Lottie in the past. And it suggests like some development that happened in between that I haven't seen yet. And Misty too actually has some lines about Lottie uh that struck me as like suggesting some kind of change in point of view from whatever she was thinking in the old days, even though I think it's true that Misty was probably never as much of an acolyte as Van was. But
Well, yeah,
but
there's
but Lottie does like talk Misty down in this episode. Um,
yes.
so anyway,
Yeah, well, and I know you said you want to talk about this when we get to the scenes, but just, I mean, I gotta say off the top of my head, two big things in this relevant to that. Nat talking to Forkface, saying Lisa, about
Lisa Forkface.
Lisa Forkface Jones, whatever her last name
Yeah,
is.
I don't know what else it
Uh,
is. That's too much.
they don't have last names, and because for the same reason they all wear purple.
We're all equal here.
Yep. The Rothschilds, the blacksmiths. That's not a last name. Um, yeah,
Just Smiths usually.
Smiths, right? Thank you. Um, it was a hyphenated name,
Mm.
Black hyphen Smith.
Black hyphen Smith. No
Uh,
relation.
no relation. Um, you know, we did horrible things. I don't know
Yeah,
if we deserved to
multiple
live.
characters say that. Yeah.
And then the we the scene with the therapist.
Yeah. 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 Yep, another one of those. Yeah.
which is great. Well, all right, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. That's like the good part of the
Yeah,
episode,
I'm
you know?
sorry. I
Like
didn't mean
there's
to.
stuff
Yeah,
that there's
there's
stuff in the
definitely good
episode
stuff.
that works. That's the thing. If it's really like if you just cut out the dream sequence, I think the episode's fine. But now
Yeah,
it's like 40 minutes long.
yeah.
It's like a network episode, you know.
And they could, but they could have done it. They could have had their hour-long episode if they had her black out, have some hallucinations, wake up and be not quite sure that she can trust. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I feel like I would have written a different episode, but
Yeah,
let's go.
it's fair. Okay, so we open up on a flashback, and by flashback I mean before the crash. We're in a classroom where Ben is showing this like pregnancy birth video to the class. It's like some kind of human sexuality class, I guess.
I think we call it human
Um,
growth and development.
Human growth and development. Sorry, I'm
They're not actually allowed to talk about sexuality.
I'm not up on the latest nomenclature. But yeah, human
No,
growth
that's
and
what we,
development.
that's what we called it in the 90s.
I forgot. I
and
forgot.
and this is set in
This
the
is the
90s.
90s, so
So
surely that's what they would have called it. Yeah. So he's showing this video. Randy is like so old school Randy here, talking about that's kind of not big enough for me,
oh
and
right.
it's like Ben's like I can fit my hand in it. So what's wrong with you?
Don't even talk a big game. We know you can't even jerk off into a condom.
I know, right? It's so weird. Like, I think Randy's
No,
character
I do feel like the
development.
condom thing is like a wink.
Yeah, I agree. I think it makes sense. Yeah, it's like a Easter egg or something.
Yeah.
That's not really the right word, but anyway.
If an Easter egg was a
Uh,
condom.
there's some much like with Van and Misty, there's some character development with Randy. I mean, and Jeff's hanging out with him too, right? And like Jeff's not like that either at this point. So, and when we saw Jeff, like younger Jeff in season 1, like he was different. It's okay for people to change, but I do feel like Randy's change is even more drastic. Like,
But now I wonder if the change, because we were talking about this briefly off camera, um,
off camera.
off camera,
We normally say off mic, but
off mic. There we go.
we are video recording all
Yeah,
of this.
yeah, just for our own archives.
Yeah. We keep archives of
Um,
those things.
Yeah. As you probably do too.
Yeah.
Listener. Viewer. The what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I'd said, people change after high school. High school is high school.
Yeah.
And but then now that you were talking, I was thinking, well, maybe it was the crash itself. We don't really get to see what it was like for
The people left
the
behind.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Um,
Well,
it was
Ali
pretty
talked
shocking.
about the trauma bond that they all share.
No, I mean in an authentic way, like actual friends of the people.
Yeah, no, I know.
Trauma
Trauma
bonds.
bond. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, no, it's a good point, and I wonder if we're gonna see that. Right? We had in episode 1, they showed us just a little bit of Lottie's post-crash stuff, and in a way, I think that was setting up what some of the other characters assumed was going on with her this whole time,
Yeah.
and that they referenced multiple times in this episode.
Yeah, in hindsight, I agree. I think that's why they did it. At the time, I thought they were setting a tone for something like what they did with Lost, where we see from each character's point of,
Mm-hmm.
or it's character centric post rescue, but
Yeah.
they did not do that.
Yeah, so my question at this point, because now we've been through 6 episodes, that's the only time they've shown that period. So what I'm wondering is, there's two possibilities. Literally, I'm correct this time.
There are only two.
We will not see that time period again this season, or we will see that time period again this season. And I would bet the most likely scenario that I have in mind is if we do see it again, as long as it's been, I feel like it'll be in the finale. Like the last episode, maybe we get a little more from another character's point of view, or more Lottie. I'm not really sure like what they would do there. There are some allusions about what happened with Shauna after the crash in this episode. Um, So anyway, there's plenty of characters that they could pay attention to in the after rescue period if they want. And I just think it's an interesting thing. I understand why they don't want to show too much of that. The more they show of that, the more they're writing checks for themselves that they might have trouble cashing later. So I think it's definitely playing it a little safer to not show us too much of that, but at
Yeah.
the same time I want to see that stuff. I think going forward in the show's like future, if they're really doing a 5 year plan, um, that period is going to become essential for the younger cast. Like they're going to have to transition to that at some point because I don't think, based on the timeline they've had so far, I don't think they're going to do 5 years of wilderness.
I mean, I feel like they're cruising toward, yeah. I don't know what they got to introduce something new because right now it feels like we could be working toward a series finale. I don't know. I know that that's not the case. I know we've got what I'm trying to say is I don't know what the fuck they're going to do with these extra seasons.
I agree. I think on a simpler version, like if they wanted to, I was saying this actually on the LLD also.
Wow.
It's so relevant to everything. I was saying how I feel like season two, the Swan Station stuff, is sort of a mini version of the general theme of the show.
Yeah.
And it's almost like if they wanted to, they could have cut it there.
God, wow, I wish they had.
And
Oh, I wish they had.
and like they hit most of the main themes that they hit later just on a smaller scale, but it's still all, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it sort of feels like that's, not knowing the show's future, not knowing how long they'll have, we want to get these ideas out there. And
Right.
and so like if the show gets canceled or whatever, at least we got like some of the main points we wanted to hit.
Right.
I do feel that way about this season. I do feel like, if they wanted to, they probably could end the show with this season. I just think that they won't, especially because they've already been renewed for a third
Yeah.
season.
No, I know that they won't. It's just, yeah. Anyway. Yes.
And I think there's room for more story. There's definitely room for more story. I feel that way. The flashback has definitely not progressed to the opening scene at this point. And it feels like it would be a rush to get there in 3 episodes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I like that they've slow played it in the flashback. I like that they've given us they'll like take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. They'll make it seem like, oh my god, and then it's like, no, 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 it didn't get out of control just yet. Like Javi sits around this episode and doesn't say a word. So there's, that's a looming thing, right?
Yeah.
There's all these like looming elements from this season that, I'm interested to see. And that's part of why I'm sort of relieved that the baby thing is over, because now we can like get to some stuff that I think has more potential.
Sure.
you know,
Sure.
to be interesting, including just, yeah, the general like decline, and Coach Ben's obvious death. I mean, if Coach Ben doesn't die this season, I'll eat my hat.
What the? They are really. Oh my god. Okay. All right. Let's.
Okay,
let's
I'm
go.
sorry.
Wait, no,
I've gotten way too derailed. Okay, sorry. We're still on the opening scene.
No, I'm just annoyed about the Coach Ben. Like, wow, please, some progress with Coach Ben.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have some specific thoughts about
Yeah.
that, which I'll share later. Okay, so we're still in the fucking flashback. Jeff passes a note to Shauna about having a tutoring session. Jackie is absent from the scene. I can only assume that the actor was no longer available, and because it makes no sense. Jackie should be there. This is weird. Anyway, Shauna gives the note back and says Jackie likes poppies, and then walks out. And then Ben says, "Any questions?" And Misty says, "How much blood is there on average?" And that's the place where we end the flashback. And then we go, I'm just going to finish this. We go to the cabin. Shauna's in labor. They lie her down. Misty's in charge if she looks a bit dazed. And that's where we go into credits.
Yeah.
So
I guess we learned that watching a video about childbirth is not enough to teach you how to birth a child.
yeah. Clearly. Yeah.
And
For Misty or Coach Ben.
Right. And I gotta say, Misty, you destroyed the black box just to fail at this moment.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. It's a good point, actually.
Anyway,
Although, I mean, I think it's arguable that Misty did anything that made it worse. You know, I think it's very possible that the
yeah,
baby would
yeah,
have been
yeah.
stillborn regardless of
No,
what
yeah,
Misty
yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah. No, I think right. The baby was probably already dead.
Yeah,
Um,
like they definitely don't definitively say like, oh, because Misty walked away
no,
for
no,
a
no,
few
no, no. I
minutes.
know.
That's
I
why.
just it's like yeah, okay. So in this episode, Misty is rattled by the death of her one and only friend.
Yeah,
Um, her accidental
and
killing.
that was connected with destroying the black box.
True. And it just happened. So it was a couple of weeks ago for us, but it was like a couple hours ago
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
Misty.
It hasn't been long.
So I should cut her some slack on her absolute failure. But I mean the clear thing that they should have just stuck with, and I was kind of irritated that they didn't, was just let Akila, the person who correctly identified clearly knows something about babies, correctly identified that she was in labor. Like let her just continue to have charge. Like we don't need to bring Misty back into this.
Well,
Anyway,
the show needs to, but yeah, I agree.
yeah, I have some issues with that. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's mostly just down to Misty's a main character and Akila's not. I
Yeah,
feel like there's really not much more to it than that.
yeah,
They wanted to give Misty a moment, in this episode. Younger Misty.
yeah,
Adult Misty also has moments. Anyway,
yeah.
um,
Just because you know how to cut somebody's leg off with a hatchet doesn't mean that you know how to birth a baby.
yeah, it's like she's the de facto doctor, but yeah, it's funny because I don't think she even was the one who sewed up Van's face. I think Akila did that as well. So anyway, there's like this thing going on in the show. Now I realize that's like kind of like Hawk in Twin Peaks, where like Akila's
Akila's
doing
actually
all
good.
this work,
Yeah,
but no one gives her credit for
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Anyway, um, yeah, just gonna leave that there. So did you understand this Jackie likes poppies line? I was a bit baffled by this. Like, what does that mean? Like,
I think it just means like go, you know, go to your girlfriend and be good to her.
yeah, okay, that's the idea. Okay, it's as simple as that. It
Yeah,
just seemed like a bit of a non sequitur. Like I would expect, like the more obvious thing I would expect would be like Jackie needs help with her something something. Like I don't know.
yeah. I don't know.
Like since he brought up tutoring,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just seems like Jackie needs tutor. I don't know. Like I don't know. It just
yeah.
it
Yeah,
feels a bit
Jackie's good. Jackie's better at math than me.
disconnected. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, whatever. It doesn't really matter because I agree that's the point to bring up Jackie, but it's
Hmm.
just anyway. Okay, so ready to move forward. All right, credits. Lottie's camp. Misty turns in her personal items to an acolyte. I don't know what this guy's name is, so I'm just gonna call him the acolyte who checks in Misty from
Hmm.
now on,
Rolls right off the tongue.
including her phone. She finds out about the landline in the kitchen. It's Chekhov's landline in the kitchen. Walter has left her some messages. We see that on her phone. Lottie comes in and sees Misty, and Misty says, "Hello, Charlotte." And Charlotte says, "Leave us." This is only to the acolyte. He's the only other one in the room. when,
This time,
when
right?
she says this,
Unlike last episode when leave us meant, all
leave
right, you
us.
60 people need to leave. Leave us
Yeah,
the room.
yeah, it's like yeah, Lottie's weird sometimes. I say sometimes. It's just in this specific way. Like it's come up a few times where she just gets kind of like commanding at certain
Yeah, if you
points.
want acolytes, you need to be commanding.
Yeah, fair enough.
People join cults because they want to be pushed around.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. It's interesting because it feels in tension with her ethos, which is very like live and let live, accept everyone as they are. Like it feels very pushy in comparison. So anyway, okay. So the acolyte leaves. Lottie wants to know what Misty's doing there. She's there for Natalie. Lottie explains the camp and that Natalie tried to kill herself. Misty says she doesn't believe it. And Lottie has this weird moment. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like she's hallucinating or something. And I feel like with the therapy session, it's suggesting that she had some.
Yeah.
We the
We don't
audience
see it.
don't get to see whatever it is, but she like touches her head and like she just zones out for a minute, and then she asks Misty to stay for a nap.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's her getting a vision and we don't see it.
Yeah,
And maybe we will find out what that's about, but she doesn't seem amenable to Misty staying before she gets that vision. So
yeah. It
what
seems
did
like the vision
the
changed something, and it's also implied by what she tells the therapist later that the visions are relevant to all of them coming back together.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I think that's the most logical. It's just interesting to me when the show chooses and doesn't choose to show us
yeah,
a thing like that. Like it reminds me of a show called Lost, where there was this plot in season 3 where Desmond has these visions of the future, and we see, some of them. Like there's one episode where we see all of them basically. But then later on in the season, when he has these visions about Claire getting on the helicopter and more pertinent visions perhaps for the plot, we do not see them. We are not privy to
right.
what he actually saw. We don't even know for sure if he saw them. Anyway, it's interesting to imply that Lottie has a vision, but not to actually tell us what it was. But maybe you're right. Maybe they're just holding it back, or maybe it's just like they didn't want to do. This is more from Misty's point of view, and therefore, like, we're just not gonna see whatever Lottie's going through at the moment. I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway, I just thought it was an interesting moment.
yeah.
Okay, so then we go back to Shauna's house. The police want to talk to Shauna and Callie. Jeff's upset about that. Shauna mentions it would have been better if Callie had sex with the cop. Which
Excellent parenting.
which is like I realized on a rewatch, oh, this is what Callie was talking about. This is what sets the stage for what she says to Kevin with a Y later.
Hmm.
And anyway, it's like, oh yeah, that's here's the setup. So anyway, we'll come back to that, of course. Back to the cabin. Labor is happening. There's confusion. Misty's kind of zoning out. Akila tries to take charge and get Misty back in the zone. Lottie goes over to try to help and gets them to join hands and suggests they share their hopes. And this is when Mari says, "Wilderness, I hope Shauna doesn't die."
Yeah, sharing your hopes, it sounds like a fine idea, but it is a little bit derailing when the first thing is, I
Yeah.
hope she doesn't
Yeah.
die.
It's like Mari says, like a really bad version of a hope, even
Yeah.
if I think she meant well, but it's just, yeah. Anyway,
It's a little tactless.
yeah, very tactless. Yeah. Lottie tells Shauna to let your pain open you to this moment. This is her line. And Ty steps in and is like, all right, Lottie, that's enough of you.
Let your pain open you to this moment. That's like something that adult Lottie would say to her acolytes.
Definitely.
I bet she will later.
I think that's I think that's definitely what they're suggesting here. But yeah, that so it's kind of funny, like it's there's been a lot of scenes like this and a Lottie scenes like this, if you will,
I will.
where Lottie tries to help and like sometimes it works
Hmm.
and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just fails. Like her idea
Yeah.
is just like not received at all. And like they had already established this, and like in addition to the baby anxiety, like they also established that I guess it was tied in, but still like Shauna was not on board with Lottie's stuff. She was like disturbed. Like prayer circle was part of this too. Like they get up and they're like talking about the baby in a circle when she's specifically not participating.
Yeah.
So anyway, like it's like, yeah, Shauna probably doesn't want to hear whatever your shit is like at
Yeah.
this point. Like that's not the thing that's gonna help here.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought that was an interesting moment, as well as the fact that Mari is tactless, like you said, but not mean.
Yeah.
Like she, it's a positive wish. It's just like,
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, it is something you can sort of imagine a young person saying, because that is, of course, the fear. Like, holy
yeah,
shit, we're in the middle of nowhere.
yeah.
We don't have anything
Death
lined
and
up.
childbirth is not something that is
Yeah.
out of the realm of possibility,
Yeah.
especially in such an environment where there's no like sanitation proper,
Yeah, and
or
just the fear, and
if
he just
anything goes
blurted
wrong.
out instead of saying like, I hope everybody's gonna be okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um. Okay.
But here is a Lindelof. Here's a Lindelof moment because Shauna didn't die. Mari didn't ask the wilderness that the baby
You're
survive.
right. You're right. That's a good point. It's a good point. I didn't even think about it that way, but yeah, you can definitely, yeah,
Because that's the only thing that gets articulated in the context of
yeah.
let's share our
Share our hopes.
hopes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Lindelof.
Yeah, there's a
But of
lot of.
course, the Lindelof shuffle is that the the fetus was probably already dead at this point.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't make a difference. Yeah, yeah. The question is like, is it yeah, is it this or that? No, it's a third thing that
Yeah,
we didn't actually name as a possibility.
yeah.
That's the shuffle. Anyway, okay. So then we go to Lottie's camp. Lisa looks for Nat, who's out shooting but failing to hit targets. Nat tells Lisa to get away and says she killed Travis. Lisa says it's not anyone else's fault. It was something already in him. Great terminology, Lisa. That's yeah, that's really on brand.
She's watching the show.
Yeah, it's like yeah. Did you hear? Were you like doing this? Sorry, I put
Listening.
my hand up to my ear. At the doorway in the previous episode, like when she does her regression and she's like, oh, we brought it back, it's
It's in
it's in us.
us.
Yeah, anyway. um
It's
uh
in me too.
so Nat says it's in me as well, and they did so much fucked up shit and didn't deserve to survive. So this is the first example of
Yeah.
talking about like, oh, the bad shit we did out there.
A
It's
really
interesting
emotional scene.
because it's really sorry. What? Go ahead.
No. I was just saying. I think this is a really emotional scene, and when you read just the straightforward description, some of that gets lost.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I read it very flatly.
Yeah,
I lose the drama. It's purely
yeah.
descriptive. If you want to like experience the episode, I recommend that you don't experience it through my summary, but rather that you watch
That
it.
you watch it. Do you? Yeah. You know what you ought to do though is overlay your reading on top of
Oh,
the
we've done
scene. Oh,
that.
I know. I know.
We've
I'd
done
love to
that.
see it for this one
There's
though.
some great versions.
Yeah.
Hey, we could do some scenes if you want.
Yeah. Yeah. Shall we do our Patrick Stewart impression? So I'll be Akila, but doing Patrick Stewart. I thought that this scene was really powerful. This is where, Juliette Lewis always kind of it plays Juliette Lewis for me. Um, but this
She's the
scene,
best Juliette Lewis. If you want a Juliette Lewis time,
yeah,
let me tell you,
yeah,
you can't beat
you can't
Juliette
beat
Lewis.
Juliette Lewis. Sometimes her Juliette Lewisness kind of grates on me a little bit. Um, but this scene worked really well. This is why you get Juliette Lewis.
Yeah, no, I think she's in a way she's got a bit of a Christopher Walken thing where she's got a persona that she can play up and it's entertaining and sometimes that's all she does.
Hmm.
Um but I think also like Christopher Walken, she can act for real if she wants to.
Yeah, yeah,
And if the scene calls for it, like she can turn off that persona thing
yeah.
and like do a real scene with actual emotion. So anyway, yeah, I think she's more versatile than sometimes her parts like allow her to be, I guess.
Yeah.
Um like I think she's been very good in things in the past. Things in the 90s, for example. Anyway, yeah, no, I agree she's good in this scene. It's a good scene. It's clearly like following through on the revelation from the previous episode. Like she has realized as well that well, now that she know, I mean, in a way, like it's sort of the best, not from a mystery point of view, but from a character point of view, it's probably the best possible outcome that she's talking about the thing that the note was about, you know so it means like the note did mean something. It wasn't just some bullshit that they tossed off. Like it's actually a major point of the future storyline. This whole idea of like we brought it back with us,
Yeah.
it was in us, blah blah blah, which is, again, for the viewer, again, bare minimum, it's a metaphor, and how much further it's going to go than that is, up to the show to decide. But
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out because that was a thing that early on was bothering us, you,
yeah,
um, that this tell Natalie she was right seemed not to have mattered.
yeah,
And so
it
now
got
we've
dropped.
gotten there. Yeah.
She's about to kill
Yeah.
herself, and like she's not even thinking about the bank account and all that, and or the note, and it's just like, like there's no further development on it than like,
But it wasn't gone forever. It was just
yeah,
on pause.
it kind of an artificial pause, which is my criticism of it, but I do like the answer. I think it's a good answer. So anyway,
It got the equilibrium.
hey, yeah, 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 because there's always artifice, especially in a show with a large cast. It is
Yeah.
hard to have them all simultaneously deal with something significant. So there's almost a necessity to have certain characters go on pause for a few episodes while other things happen, and
Yeah.
then they turn on again.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. Oh yeah, the other thing I was gonna say is like, I talked about this before in the speech Shauna gives about, peeling the skin and like the look on a person's face so they know they're gonna die, and you know like this whole thing of we did so much fucked up shit. It's like they were not talking that way in season one. They were way more cagey about everything.
Right.
It
Right.
was like, oh yeah, it was bad, and we we had to survive, and it was tough out there, and it was a lot
Yeah.
gentler the way they described what
Yeah.
happened.
Gone are the days of Thais's campaign,
Yeah, yeah,
which,
yeah.
by the way, elected officials.
Yeah, it's like, is there an empty seat in
Yeah.
like
No,
the
she hasn't voted on anything
in
yet.
Congress where it's like, yeah, Thaisa Turner hasn't showed up for a single vote like since her election. I don't know.
Oh, she's
Like,
just a meeting with constituents.
no, I mean, I guess to be realistic about things, the election should have been probably in November, and I don't know if they really are going with that, but uh
Maybe they're not in session yet.
uh yeah, basically before they're sworn in, and they actually have like there's
Yeah.
a couple of and I don't think it's been months because they were just looking at the altar like a few episodes ago.
Yeah, no, it
So
hasn't been very long.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I so
Okay, all right, all right.
yeah, anyway, I feel like it's like kind
Right.
of
She hasn't been sworn in yet.
it's one of those like where the TV timeline is much shorter. If for us it's been a year,
Right.
so it feels like she should have been doing her fucking job by
Right.
now. But anyway,
Right.
all right. So then we go over to Van's place. Ty wakes up. I think this is weird. I'll talk about this in a second. She finds out that Bad One told Van this isn't where we're supposed to be. Ty wonders who we is. Van rejects that she should be involved and then leaves to open the store. And Ty notices what we later learn are some bills in the trash. And we'll come back to that later.
I think it was pretty clear what they were.
I had no idea. I always look at the wrong place. Actually,
Yeah.
that scene where Jeff looks in the glove compartment and the gun's there, like I know rationally that's what's there. I watched that scene 5 times and I could not see the gun. And it's so fast I couldn't even pause it long enough to look.
That's
Every
funny.
time I looked in the wrong place, like I never actually saw it,
That's
even
really
though I
funny.
know that's what it is. Anyway,
Yeah.
whatever.
I actually didn't see that. I've only seen it once, but I did not see the gun, but I knew what we were being told.
Yeah, I had no idea what the implication. I'm like, what's the? She threw away some mail. Like, what's the implication? I had no idea what the point of that was. Anyway, I just think it's weird. Like, this is like general movie, TV, scene writing versus reality kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like in the previous episode, we see the bad one wake up and she kisses Van. She's like, this is not where we're supposed to be, right? And then in this episode, Ty just wakes up and it's like, how did you get from the previous scene to this scene? Like, you know it just feels very unnatural. Like, how did that previous scene end and then Tyler
I
to bed?
know, I
And then
know.
she woke up and now
Yeah,
you're gonna talk about it? Like, it's like it works for the audience
I
because it's like it's
know.
been
That
a
is
week for
classic. Yeah,
us.
classic TV,
But it's
classic
just like
movies.
it's
Like,
just I don't understand like what she was like,
yeah,
this isn't where we're supposed to be. I'm to bed now. Like, I
right.
don't understand. Like,
Her phone rang. Van's phone rang. She had to take it, and then Thaisa fell asleep.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
No, yeah, this happens all the time, and it's like, it's funny to me to try to imagine how scenes segue from these peak drama
Yeah,
moments when they
yeah.
cut it off to the next thing, and it's like, what's a funny counterpoint to this is the like, what do you mean we have to go back?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
TV wants things to go a certain way, but then in real life, it's like, no, you got to talk about this now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing a long time ago that it's like a screenwriting uh principle that you want to end a scene at the most interesting point.
Yeah,
You don't want to go past that and
yeah,
let it drop off and then end it, which
yeah,
makes sense. But the consequence is that we end it and then a lot of times they kind of imply that they stop talking there, which
yeah,
which is so unrealistic.
yeah.
No one stops talking at the most interesting
No,
point in the conversation. That's ridiculous.
everything in the TV world, right after the moment of peak interest, the other character says, "I can't talk about this right now."
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
sometimes
now I'm ready to talk about that thing.
sometimes it's like there's no time to explain.
Yeah,
We'll talk about this later. Blah blah blah. Like sometimes they come up with an excuse, like why.
yeah, or like someone barges in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Someone stumbles out of the
A
jungle.
cat jumps off of
A
the
cat
off of the cabinet.
breaking the tension.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure
sure.
Cat has some cat. I mean, Van has some cats.
Yeah. I guess they're gonna be minding the store while she's
Yeah, you
gone.
can't have a video store without cats.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Cat video store cats. Anyway, all right. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So we go to the cabin. Misty has blood on her hands from the birth. She has a flashback to Crystal. Then she freaks out and walks away. Nat goes to get Ben, who just looks horrified and says he has no idea what to do to help.
And
Uh,
he's not gonna try.
and he's not going to try. I mean, hey, look.
You're on your own, bitches.
I mean, I get it.
I'm going back to my brain
I got enough
where
going on up here. Y'all gonna be eating me soon.
ditched y'all girls so I could live my best life with my boyfriend and our friends. Fuck y'all.
Done with you monsters. All right. Nat tries to reassure Shauna. Akila takes over, and we see that Nugget, the mouse, is in her pocket. Shauna asks who she's talking to. So yeah, anyway, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, now you want to reach in and see if you can feel the
Oh my
placenta.
god, it's like Cyrano the doctor mouse.
Dr. Mouse. Or Ratatouille.
Ratatouille.
Ratatouille 2, the doula.
Yeah.
Doula rat.
Doula rat. Oh my god. Oh my
Um,
god.
yeah.
Okay. Then Shauna asks about Misty. Akila reassures her. At this point, Travis grabs a skull and off the wall, and under Lottie's direction, he cuts his hand and spills blood on the skull. And the others put offerings on it.
Oh my god, what are they gonna do
There's
with
like
them?
some hair. I'm like, why did you have a chunk of hair? Like
Cut it. They had some convenient scissors. The cabin has
in that scene, I
the
didn't see
cabin
what.
has exactly what they need in it.
They had it so fast and they don't show anyone cutting. So I'm just like, did you just have a chunk of hair in your pocket, Lot? Like, what are you doing?
They've been waiting for
Anyway.
this moment.
Yeah, it's real weird. And Lottie says the wilderness recognizes your sacrifice, and so do I.
Man, you know what they could have done is to spice things up a little, but again, they didn't want to do this because they want to end on what they want to end on, which I understand. Uh show what show that Lottie does something fucked up with the dead baby. offering it as a sacrifice in the stump or something.
Hmm.
But they don't want to end with that. Anyway,
Definitely not.
oh my God, Travis. Oh my God. And
Yeah.
like the let this be it makes me think of the let this be enough. Uh
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um
Yeah. It's clearly connected to that. It's the same thing, cutting the hand and
yeah.
like dripping blood on a thing as a sacrifice. Like, yeah,
But yeah,
totally.
Travis is the one who really escalates this for me by
Yeah.
getting that skull down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of like Ben's just like, I give up, I don't know what to do. Travis's best idea is like, let's do some fucking ritual thing.
Do we see the baby blanket with the symbol in this scene? I know they showed in the previously.
If we see it, I didn't
You
notice
didn't catch
it.
it. Yeah. I just, that's another thing they could have thrown in to be like, is this
It's possible that
significant?
the baby's wrapped in it at the end because they do have it wrapped in a blanket. I didn't actually pay attention to like, is that the blanket? They don't focus on like whatever
Yeah.
wherever the blanket is. It's not a focal point, and the only reason they showed that is because of the dream stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the blanket. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I feel like the blanket might have served its purpose, but
Yeah.
we'll see. It kind of seems like the blanket's partially just there because they don't want to show baby corpse.
Yes.
Okay. So, then we go to Lottie's therapy. Lottie says the visions are still happening and she has a feeling that's pointing her back to the past. The therapist says it's just anxiety of the illness returning. Lottie says she's not worried about that. She's worried that she's never been ill, and it sent the other Yellowjackets there to show her that it was real, and she wasn't the only one who felt it. What is? And we asked the
Key?
question that no,
Sorry.
not Key.
What? Okay.
Qua.
Well, the episode title is not Qua.
I know, but I'm just saying. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
We asked the
Like-
question that early 90s funk metal band Faith No More asked, which is, what is it?
what's
Lottie.
it? Yeah, that would have been a great time to throw in that song.
I know, right? It would actually fit
It
into
would.
the timeline. I don't know. They don't want
This
to be
is
too on the
quite
nose
a
with everything,
scene.
but I haven't finished yet.
Mm.
I'll just finish. If you want to say something, go ahead.
No,
but-
please,
okay.
please.
The power of that place. This is Lottie's answer. The power of that place, the God of that place.
Yeah.
She says, we did terrible things in its name. And she thought it was left behind, but now she realizes they brought it back with them. So basically, this is a mirror, a direct. I mean, it's almost one for one the scene with Natalie.
Yeah.
Like she says the exact same things that now she doesn't say Travis was her fault because she wasn't the one who said that originally, but it's clear that she is taking it the same way Natalie is in terms of like we brought it back with us.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Now that she's learned that. So yeah,
I mean, great episode, a great scene.
they make her specify, it, is like a god of the wilderness. Like we're just gonna say it.
We did terrible things in its name.
And we did terrible things in its name. Yeah. Which is yet another example of the season 2. Like, I don't know that they would have phrased it that way in season 1. I think they were they were cagier about what they did, but also cagier about the weirdness, cagier about the rituals and what they believed about the god of the wilderness or whatever. Like now they're really like saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Like, not just we did things, but we did things in the name of this god of the wilderness that we now are, at least some of us think, like, is somehow still here with us.
Yeah, and I think this is the first time they have explicitly said what I'm sure some people were predicting from the pit scene, the pit girl scene.
Yeah.
That it wasn't just about surviving.
Yeah.
And whatever crazy distancing rituals they might have come up with to like dress in costume to kind of feel like they weren't killing and eating their friends, but that they were doing horrible things for this guy. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite a scene.
Yeah. Yeah,
And in
they.
this, you know, I'm afraid I never was ill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great. That's a great line.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think it correlates somewhat with the question of what actually happened to Lottie in the intervening years because, going back to that first episode, flashback to post rescue, we see her in the institution getting electroshocked. We see her going up to another patient there and saying, "It can help you just like it helped me." And then cutting to adult Lottie, no one can help you. Blah, blah, blah. It's all in your head. None of it's real, right? There's clearly an arc there of, you know, I can only assume that a condition of her release from the institution was coming to believe uh, that it was actually that it was just a delusion that she's just got like some like brain chemistry issues.
Right. So they say in this episode, they refer to her as a diagnosed schizophrenic.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
which she had been taking medication before the crash, and then was institutionalized seemingly for like at least 20 years potentially after the rescue. I mean, all of the Yellowjackets assumed she was still there, which I think must mean that she couldn't have been out for that long. Like,
She's been out for long enough to build that cult and to build a following. I mean, I think it's kind of, I think it strains credulity that none of them knew that she was out, including the one who had hired an expensive private investigator to track them all down. She's going by her.
and she
It's like,
talked about him living off the grid, and now it's clear that she couldn't have meant this because Ty didn't know about it. So
Charlotte Matthew. Oh, well, I was looking for a Lottie Matthews. You didn't tell me it was short for Charlotte Matthews.
So she must have met Van then. I guess that's the only explanation. Even though like Van is not living off the grid by any reasonable definition of off the grid. So like right, because she goes to Van, she didn't know about Lottie. She learns about Lottie from Misty in this episode.
I feel like the only one who could be said to have been living off the grid is Travis.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Unless there's more. If there's another one out there, another survivor.
Yeah, 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 yeah. How many more are they gonna pull out of the bucket? We'll see. I feel like they can only do that so much before it gets ridiculous. I remember hearing about Westworld after we stopped watching, which was season 1, by the way.
Well, we finished season 1.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
To
Yeah.
our credit.
Yeah, but yeah, I wasn't really happy with the ending, and so I quit. But like, even in season 1, they already did some of this, but in the future seasons, like they just keep revealing that characters are robots or androids or whatever they call them.
Yeah.
And like at a certain point, and actually True Blood is another touch point for this,
Oh my god, yes, not another were animal.
where it's just where like they just keep revealing characters are some supernatural thing. At a
Yeah.
certain point, like I think it loses punch if you keep saying, and this person survived.
Yeah.
And wait a minute, they all survived. Who did they eat? Like, like
Yeah.
at a certain, like Jackie is the only one they ever ate. And the end. I don't know. That makes no sense. But just to say,
Yeah, you go to the well too many times and it dries out.
yeah. So I feel like maybe they can get away with one more, but I feel like they really can't do that too many more times.
Yeah,
before it's
I
gonna
think they
lose its
probably want us
punch.
to forget about that line.
I agree. It's just interesting that they actually showed it specifically this season when Ty is about to go to Van, which I think, like I said, in retrospect,
Yeah,
implies
there's a
that
deleted
it was
scene
about
where
Van.
Jessica Roberts is like, actually, that's the wrong phrase to use. What I mean is that they're like a little bit harder to find than some other people.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I feel like the reason why they don't know about Lottie is really just as simple as it was supposed to be a mystery in season 1, and if all the characters already, they'd be
obviously.
like, "Oh, maybe Lottie sent it."
Yeah.
Like it would have really like undercut the mystery of season 1
Yeah.
if like the characters already know about Lottie. So, because it's like it's got the symbol on it. she's got a camp where the symbol is an official symbol of the camp. They all wear it on a necklace. It's on the ground, like carved out, you know?
Yep.
So I just feel like it's just that. Like,
Yeah.
it's not about realism, it's about covering their tracks for
Correct.
season one.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. Yeah. So yeah, no, this is a good scene. I think it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I think you know, I think Lottie is definitely the lock of this show where, you know, like she's got like the most vivid like connection to the weirdness, and therefore like whatever it means, like um you know, uh gives her um uh like disturbs her in a way that it doesn't disturb the other characters, because at the very least like they don't have, I don't know, I mean a few of them kind of did in season one, but they were different, like, but at least for this season like they don't have the kinds of disturbing hallucinations that, or whatever they are, that Lottie has, you know. So and like this that, you know, being in doubt about like, am I just fabricating this? And if I am fabricating this, then how is all this happening? You know, like this has to mean something. You know, that's the thing that feels very Locke about it. That it's like how could this just be a coincidence? You know, like
Right.
clearly the god is trying to tell us something by bringing them together, bringing the Yellowjackets back together after all these years, and that's when my visions return, and you know, like investing it with, that's also a Lindelof thing, like deciding something has to mean something, you
Right.
know,
Right.
whether it does or not, you know, because like it might, but it might not, I don't know, we'll see. I don't actually know where this plot's going, but
Yeah.
anyway, okay. You ready to move forward? Okay. So we're back at Lottie's camp. Misty's in a drum circle. I oh man, her drum technique is pretty hilarious in the scene. I yeah, I love it. It's like the least enthusiastic drum performance I've ever seen.
Wow.
It's like
They can't see you. But you look a little bit like a cat batting at a ball of yarn.
yeah.
But gently.
That's kind of what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Good description. Okay, so Misty's in a drum circle as an acolyte cries, some kind of drum circle crying therapy session.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We've all attended
the check-in acolyte asks Misty about Walter because he saw the messages on the phone. Misty says she's just there for Natalie. Suddenly, the drumming stops and they all look at her. And she says she could tell some stories.
And she's back in her happy place.
Hey, oh, you like me? I'm interesting to you.
The center of
Oh,
attention. Well,
wow, that's not why I'm doing this.
let me make my signature face and do my signature glasses adjustments.
Yeah, that's such a thing. Okay, we'll come back to that. Back to the cabin. Ben is freaking out again. We see another VHS flashback. This time, it's a Guess the Movie charades party. It's very short though. Shauna's screaming ends the flashback. Akila thinks it's coming, and uh, oh, Ty looks. Sorry, typos. Typos. Hey, all right. Akila decides it's the placenta. So she pulls out the placenta. Misty is crying and chastising herself for what happened with Crystal, and generally. And Lottie comes in and tries to talk Misty down. And it works basically. She's like, "Get it together, all right?" You know, um, like Crystal's gone. This is happening now.
Yeah.
Very simple, like, you
We
know,
need you to snap out of it.
being helpful basically. I mean,
Yeah.
like Lottie, this is Lottie being normal basically.
Yeah.
Like doing a thing any character could do, you
Yeah.
know, in a TV show. um so Misty goes back to Shauna and takes over for Aquila, and
Who was doing just fine, by the way.
tells
Doing a
Shauna,
great job.
no, Misty's got to get in there, Misty. Come on, we need our Misty quota for this week. So she tells Shauna to push, and we transition out at that point. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna say. I mean, I said this in the
Is this the
earlier.
Fade to Black? No.
No, we're not there
Okay.
yet. It's the next scene in the cabin when that happens.
Okay.
Um, when we got the previous so there was the almost Ben-centric episode where we get
Ben-trick.
multiple flashbacks. I think that was the second episode or so this season. Um which was really effective, and he's just like lying on that bed like in a daze and doesn't say anything for almost the entire episode. And it seemed like he was on his last like level of consciousness, and pretty soon he was just going to pass out from starvation and they were going to eat him, right?
Yeah.
That's how it made it seem. And then like in the next episode he was fine and he had another flashback, and then there was another episode, and then there was another episode, and now we have yet another episode where like he's disturbed by what happens but otherwise he seems fine, and he has another flashback and it's like
yeah, that episode was too early.
I'm still convinced that he's going to die this season. I feel strongly that that's why they're doing these scenes, to build up. It's kind of like what they did with Laura Lee. Like they show us like some of this flashback stuff and kind of establish the character because that character is imminently going to die. And you know, because like there had been some stuff about his character in season 1 that was like a bit undeveloped, and so it's like, okay, we'll like do that in conjunction with, you know, the idea that he doesn't participate in the cannibalism. And I guess it was episode 3 then, because I think when they eat Jackie is episode 2, and it was the follow-up from that led to all the flashbacks. So I guess it was episode 3. So yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're like 4 episodes of like Ben spiral. So yeah, I think we're heading for they eat him. I just think that's like the most likely outcome here.
That's a really good prediction for the show.
Yeah, it is. It's a very easy prediction to make, but like he's probably the biggest one there. I mean, maybe even without his leg.
So
it just seems like he would be like a good catch in terms of just mass.
I agree that the tidiest thing, and the thing that I think most of us were expecting, what you were expecting, is that episode is the start of his slide into total dissociation and then just like death by starvation, or they kill him when they realize he's just in this catatonic state that he's not going to come back from. But then they had this other stuff that they needed to deal with, and and so it's almost like that episode happens at the wrong time. Like it needs to happen early enough that it can be a response to the horror of them eating Jackie, but then they're not ready for him to but then it seems like he's had a rebound and he's like kind of doing fine now. And okay, I can accept that, but my fear is that they are heading for a disequilibrium with him. They drag him out, or are they going to make it worth having kept him around?
Yeah. Another theory I had was that you know, Coach Ben on the list of characters on this show, like Coach Ben is probably above Aquila, but like below most of the characters, most of them, I mean, all of the main characters. Clearly, he's not in the future at all. And even in the flashbacks, like he's doesn't get a ton of focal, you know, attention, you know. So I was thinking like maybe like he's going to die later in the season, but they don't want to have like a Coach Ben-centric episode that late in the season because it's sort of out of whack with how important his character is to the show. But they wanted to include it. I feel like maybe that's the problem, because logically it makes more sense to do the trivial VHS flashbacks first. Then we do the spiral episode where he's catatonic, and we get to that like fantasy sequence where he sees the news story, and that's the episode where he actually dies. Like it feels like
Yeah.
that's like dramatically the logical thing to do, but I feel like maybe it's just other considerations
Yeah.
like where the actor's name is in the credits that are
Yeah.
are leading them to do something else. Like I don't know. It's just a theory about how they got there, but I think yeah, the consequence is that like it kind of undercuts the impact of the first episode. Like this flashback didn't bother me as much as that one right after
Yeah.
did,
Yeah.
because it was very brief. And because they had already done it, they've already
Yeah.
broken the seal. So,
Yeah.
and I've already moved on from like, oh, Coach Ben's actually like okay, more or less, like, So, like, I didn't, but yeah, I think disequilibrium is definitely something that I think is kind of inevitable.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way they can avoid that. So I'm just gonna hope that it's as not bad as it can be.
Yeah. I'll prepare myself for disappointment.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think that's safe.
Now what?
Okay, go to the police station.
Oh yeah, the placenta coming out first.
Oh.
They acknowledge this is a very bad sign,
Oh, okay. Yeah. I didn't.
and it doesn't look right.
I don't know what a placenta is supposed to look like, especially a fake one. But
Well,
yeah. It they definitely indicated
Yeah.
that it's not what was supposed to
it's an
happen.
ominous sign.
Yeah. So we go to the police station. Um, Callie and Shauna walk in and they meet Matt slash Jay. Matt directs Shauna into an interrogation room, and Callie goes with Kevin because otherwise this fucked up situation gets even worse.
Yeah.
Seriously, okay. Well, I'm going to talk about that later. This is mostly a functional scene, so I'll just I'll save my comments for later. Okay. Back to Van's place. Ty sorting tapes. She asks Van how business is and mentions the bills that she saw in the trash. Van says she has savings and also it's none of your business. Ty gets a call. It's Misty. So Misty calls from the landline in the kitchen, which is the only reason Ty answers. Right? This is
Right.
I think this is efficient writing here
Yeah.
where like they take away the phones. They already established that, so Misty doesn't have her phone. Okay, she uses a landline. Ooh, the upside of using a landline is Ty doesn't know who it is. She doesn't know not to answer Misty's call. So like this is something I realized on the second watch.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So yeah, in terms of like screenwriting 101, double check.
Chef
Good job.
kiss.
Yeah. Yeah, gold star. Anyway, it's Misty. She tells Ty about Lottie's camp and suggests that Ty come to the camp, and that just might happen. I think it's an interesting note. I think there's a logic to it, but um, the idea that like the business is like not doing well enough. Like I'm just thinking like it's a small town. How bad is the rent? I don't know. We saw customers in there. I don't know. It just seems like VHS stuff. Like how expensive? I don't know. It's like it seems to me like the business should be doing okay, but I don't know. Anyway, they tell us it's
Really?
not.
Because I
So.
think the absolute opposite. How could you possibly break even running a video store? You have to.
For hipsters.
Well, yes, it is for hipsters. Anyway, yeah, it most small businesses fail.
She was like digitizing videos.
Yeah, that's probably the only place she actually makes money. But she's gotta pay rent. She's
Yeah.
gotta keep the lights on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it's canon that it's not doing well, so I have to accept
It's
that.
a bit of novelty.
Yeah. It's just I didn't have the impression from the previous episodes that the business was doing really poorly. So anyway, okay. Back to the cabin. Lottie's called, or they're in their little circle around the little skull offering thing, and they repeat, "We hear the wilderness, and it hears us," which is a very creepy chant. As the birth continues, Ty joins in the chant eventually. Shauna pushes. Misty says that she's palming the head. Shauna pushes more, and at this point, we fade to black, and this is definitely where the dream starts. So this is, I looked at the time, it's literally halfway through the episode when this happens.
Okay.
So it's really only half of the episode and it's only in the flashback part. So it's really like a quarter of the episode is the dream sequence,
Right.
which is a lot, but also not overwhelming. Like there is a decent amount of stuff in this episode that did actually happen, but I think ultimately, like, I agree with you that like it's in a way it's a frustration that that we spend a whole episode where half of the stuff from the flashback didn't happen, and therefore like the past storyline didn't. The baby thing is really the only thing that gets properly dealt with in the flashback in this episode. And they wanted to give an episode to that, so I understand, but it also feels like I feel, shortchanged a bit here. Anyway. So then at this point we transition to the dream part. So I'm just going to refer to this as the dream, even though obviously if you're watching it the first time, if this is your first time hearing about Showtime's Emmy-winning drama thriller horror series Yellowjackets,
Sorry that we already ruined it.
it's a spoiler. So
Yeah. Sorry.
But Shauna wakes up in the
In
dream
quotes.
and holds her baby boy. And yeah, wow, the baby was born. Yeah, so obviously that didn't happen. So yeah, we can take with a grain of salt everything that happens up until the very last scene in this episode in the past. So but we'll describe it anyway. So yeah, it was interesting watching it again. It was like very clear where the transition was, because when I thought about the episode right after watching it the first time, it was like, wait, so how much in that episode actually happened? But they make it quite clear.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry. Like, it hears the wilderness and it hears we hear the wilderness and it hears us was definitely real. That totally happened. Okay. So then we go to driving with Van and Ty, to Lottie's camp, obviously. Ty wonders why Van doesn't check out the camp, and Van says, um, the diagnosed schizophrenic and her so-called wellness center out in the middle of nowhere. Oh, I'm curious, but no, I'd rather keep the past in the past. That's her line. I wrote it down verbatim. Ty questions this, but Van says she lives in an idealized past. So, the videos and all that stuff.
Ah, yes.
Ty talks about dating. Van says she uses some apps. Yeah, so this was the line I was talking about earlier that definitely implies a change in perspective on Van's part about Lottie, because she was all up in the Lottie weirdness in
Yeah, so a change of perspective or a kind of rejection. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is part of the change in perspective. Like, she went all in, and then when they were rescued, horror and like shock. How could I have been taken in by that? And also, it must have really stung to hear that Lottie was diagnosed as schizophrenic. So you were taken in not just by all of this, but this was all according to that diagnosis, which may or may not have been correct, in her head.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And they all did
sort of like an overcompensating.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it makes sense that she wouldn't still be. I mean, it's clear no one was still, participating in Lottie's cult when they come back.
Right.
But it's just it's always interesting to me when the future storyline implies stuff about the past that we haven't actually seen.
Yeah.
And this is an example of that.
Yeah.
It implies stuff in the intervening years of how they get from there. And also it's like, I want to let the past be in the past. Like, she wanted to make a break, like, let's start over. Sure, I can like enjoy the idea of the past on planet Earth, but what happened to us out there is something I now don't want to think about anymore. And specifically, the stuff that Lottie had us do out there is something I don't want to think about anymore. Yeah, totally. But it's just interesting because there is clearly a divide in the flashbacks of characters who are more buying into Lottie's like weirdness,
and characters who are rejecting it.
Yeah.
And so I guess this is the mirror image of that in the future.
Yeah.
Um, and I think where Ty stands on this is kind of ambiguous. The bad one is like all about it, but even Ty in this episode and previously with the circle, like where she joined, like she joins in the chant, you know?
Yeah.
We hear the wilderness. Like it
Yeah, she seemed kind of in some previous episodes, maybe it's getting a little more pragmatic about it, or a little more of the like, well, even if it's
a placebo.
yeah,
It
placebo
can't
effect, I'll
hurt.
still take
Yeah,
it.
yeah. They had a specific conversation about that. So
Yeah, and sort of
yeah.
like Shauna, where she's reached this point of desperation, where
Yeah.
obviously sticking around is not an option.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll try.
She's arguably like having bigger problems than Shauna is.
Yeah, they're totally different, but yeah, I think they are bigger.
I mean, just practically bigger. I don't know about like psychologically bigger, but like what she's actually done is like so over the top.
Yeah, I mean, Shauna killed a guy and is
That's
on the
true.
and is suspected by
That's not
by the
nothing.
law.
That's not nothing.
Um,
That's not nothing. I agree. Yeah, so arguably. Okay. Da, 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 da. Okay. So then we go to Lottie's camp. Lisa comes into Nat's room and offers her the fish to be responsible for something. Innocent. Nat asks why Lisa forgave her for stabbing her in the face, which I think is
very direct.
just a funny thing to have to ask about. Why did you forgive me for stabbing you in the face? It's like not
Yeah.
something you ever really get to say to anyone.
Yeah, no, that's
So anyway, Lisa says that we should meet suffering with compassion in order to grow, which is classic, therapy sort of speak, I guess.
he has definitely heard Lottie say that exact sentence
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the acolytes.
100%, 100%. Okay, so we'll come back to that. We go over to the cabin dream. We see the trees, dream trees, by the way.
Dream
These are dream
trees.
trees. Okay.
No, I think the trees are a sign that it's a vision. No, I don't fucking.
Yeah,
I don't know. They love that shot.
they do. I mean, previously it seemed like the trees were implying the god of the wilderness, basically.
Yeah,
I think
I don't buy that here though.
in this context, yeah, I agree. I think in this context, it's Shauna's thinking about her situation that they symbolize more.
Yes.
Since they're within the dream. So we see the trees. Shauna holds the baby. She tries to get him to feed, but he seems to be unable. Nat says you've been starving, and maybe that's the problem. Shauna's in a room by herself with a crib, and Ty closes the door on her. And we leave it there for now. So yeah, this is one of those things that's like problematic now because it's like none of this really happened. So we're just building to a point here. Maybe that's the other thing about the dream. Like it really has like one point that it's trying to make. And that kind of like I guess yeah, to phrase it another way, if it's a dream, it can definitely tell us something about Shauna. There's a character development thing, but it can't tell us too much about the other characters
Right.
because it's really just what Shauna thinks about them.
Right. And it does, as you pointed out in the beginning, it does work for Shauna psychologically. It
Yeah.
takes her on a compressed journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so police station. Jeff listens to "Fuck the Police" outside the
So
police.
Jeff, that is peak Jeff, and he's like, he's like
Yeah.
moving to the music.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, fuck the police. It's sweet Jeff,
I know.
sweet innocent Jeff.
It's so
Bless
true.
his little Jeff heart.
It's so true. Yeah. Never has there been a more heartwarming use of "Fuck the Police."
Yeah, he's too pure for this world.
Okay. So at this point, Ty calls Shauna's phone. Jeff answers because she left it in the car. And he offers to take a message. Ty tells him about Lottie's camp. She's not in the institution anymore. That comes up right here. Again. Ty and Van are headed there. Jeff says, "Hi, Van," but they already hung up.
Oh.
So
Yeah, he's a little late with it. It's just a lot of information for Jeff to take
it
in.
really is.
And
It really
especially
is.
considering that his mind is already occupied with other important things
Yeah.
that he of course doesn't admit. I love he's like, she's in the bathroom, but it
Yeah.
could be a while.
Yeah. He doesn't. Yeah.
He doesn't
Explain.
apparently want to say that she's in the
Yeah.
police station. Of course, he doesn't know that
Interestingly,
Ty helped dispose of the body.
does he not?
I think he does not.
Okay. Okay. Shauna didn't tell him that the other Yellowjackets
I
helped.
I think Shauna was like the less you know the better.
Did she? Okay. That's how she phrased it.
I
Okay.
think so.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, she definitely said that to him, and
Okay.
I think that's
It's just it's getting tricky tracking
Who
what
knows
each character
what? Tricky
knows
tracking?
because like each character has a little bit of the truth and
it's the tricky track.
like very few of them know everything. So
Yeah, this is a lot. It's a great, efficient little scene for her to call, and of course, it's great that he answers.
yeah.
Um.
Yeah, no.
Van was like, Vans with you? What?
Yeah,
Huh? Wait,
yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah, no, but it is mostly just a functional scene to set up the thing that's gonna happen later. Okay. So we go to Lottie's camp. Nat walks into the dining room. Misty is telling some stories to some acolytes. But they all leave when Natalie comes over, which I thought was a bit weird.
Well, they don't want to get stabbed in the face with a fork.
Yeah, is that it? They're just like, Nat asked Misty why she came back. Misty wanted to know what's going on. She says Nat seems weird, and so does Lottie. But you know what's new, right? This is Misty's line about Lottie. Misty says they are celebrities since they know Lottie. Nat asks about Walter. Misty says he went home. Nat says, "We're all like this, aren't we?" Which I thought was a weird line to end the scene on. Like, I'm not even sure. I vaguely know what she means, but I'm like specifically not sure what she means.
Does she mean like the acolytes, or does she mean like Lottie? Like this, like the weirdness. Oh, she's being weird. They're being weird.
Mhm.
The acolytes are all broken, and they've flocked to her for healing. But we're here too.
Yeah. Like I thought maybe she meant like pushing people away from us, like talking about Walter.
Talking about Walter pushing.
Like, but I'm not even sure, like, because it could be what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a vague line, and I thought it was weird that they ended there.
We're
Anyway,
all like this, aren't we? Yeah.
we're all like this, aren't we? Yeah, cut
It's a good
there.
line.
I don't know. It is a good line. Yeah. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting that Missy's like, Lottie seems weird, but you know what's new, right? Like that's an interesting dismissive way to talk about Lottie from Misty's point of view. Like Misty, how normal do you think you are? Like where do you get off judging Lottie? Like you got your own problems.
Yeah.
You're all like this, aren't you? Anyway. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just I think it's a theme in this episode, like what people think about Lottie.
Yes.
That haven't already encountered her
Including
before.
what Lottie thinks about Lottie.
Including what Lottie thinks about Lottie. I agree. Okay. So then we go to the cabin dream. Baby cries. Shauna tries again to get the baby to feed and wonders why it doesn't work. And we're done. Okay. Then we go back to the police station. Matt interrogates Shauna. Kevin interrogates Callie. Matt asks about the fake hookup with Randy and about Callie's lying. Kevin tells Callie that Shauna is using her. Matt says that Shauna is a bad mom, and Shauna says she never wanted it, but only had Callie to save a marriage out of guilt and shame. She still loves them, but is bad at it. Shauna admits the affair with Adam and says to leave Callie out of it. Matt asks Shauna, when was the last time you saw Adam Martin? And we cut there. We never know what she even said because of the way this episode's written. Callie, then we move over. Callie cries and tells Kevin, I was a virgin and Jay told me he loved me, but all he wanted was to get at my mom. Kevin takes back the tissues that he had offered her, which I thought was a funny
Oh,
note.
that's so great. It's like oh, poor Kevin. He's finally learning like to not be totally jerked around by the
Yep,
Yellow Jackets and Yellow Jacket adjacent.
indeed.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, I see. You're playing me.
Yeah, it's like he pushes the tissues over and it's like, no tissues for you. I think these are crocodile tears. And he says, Matt knows the rules and they could charge Callie with lying to the police. Callie says, charge me. We'll see who they believe, especially when they ask me to describe his weird ass balls. Which is
Yeah.
like, okay, okay, who's gonna ask you that? Excuse me. Could you describe Officer
Could you-
Syracuse's weird ass balls?
Yes, ma'am. But it is your word against his, so I have to ask whether you have any concrete evidence of an affair. For instance, a vivid description of his weird ass balls.
Yeah, so I'm just like this ploy. I know Callie.
She would force the police department to settle out of court.
I I know
That's
Callie
the image to have in your mind.
is not uh she's not supposed to be like a super criminal or whatever. It's fine. Like, I'm just like, I'm thinking forward to like, what is the scenario here? And it's like, if your ploy is, I'm going to talk about his weird ass balls, then I feel like the next question is, okay, can you describe his weird ass balls in detail? And then what are you going to say? And then how is that going to be corroborated? It just feels like that's leading to a point where it's going to be like, you're lying about this, aren't you?
No, I think that Callie is a criminal mastermind and she could completely thread the needle of describing balls which are weird in a way that works and is convincing and is general enough to be applicable to any ball set.
Oh man.
I'm just saying, you don't want to cross that girl.
Okay. No, I mean, I give her full credit. I'm just saying, like,
She and her mother are both great liars.
yeah. I mean, that's clearly a thing. It's just, I just think this is an interesting lie to tell.
I know you love it. You love it. You love fixating on it. It's great. Go for it.
I don't know. It just strikes me as weird. But okay, I can move.
It's a weird play. I think we get a nice.
It's a
little
funny
chuckle out of
line.
it. Yeah.
It's a good way to end the scene.
And it's also it diffuses it more than something like more serious, as she could say,
Right.
that would be perhaps more realistic.
Yeah.
To like give a hint that she's serious.
So my question, to me, I feel like the more obvious thing for Callie to say is, oh, he knows the rules. Does he? Does that include buying alcohol for minors?
Yes, I know that's another thing that you really liked.
Well, it's the
You know
elephant in the room. Because
right?
that's true. Like, that actually
Well,
happens.
because I feel like Kevin is a little bit lying in this scene too, because Kevin,
Yeah.
we know from previous scenes, thinks that he has transgressed.
Yeah. You're right. He's just playing it because he's trying to get what he wants out of the
And
interrogation.
that, you know what? Hey, if Law and Order has taught me anything, it's that
Do what you got to do to get the confession.
yeah.
Whatever you have to say.
Yeah, they're always beating the
Yep.
shit out of suspects.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you all have seen Law and Order.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Give him the caution.
give them the caution and then just smash their head against the wall.
All right. Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to say is there's also like
Law and Order is actually really wholesome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they don't do that.
It's not like torture.
Not even SVU.
It's not
Christopher
24.
Maloney. No, there's probably like one episode where Christopher Maloney and SVU goes too far.
Oh, yeah, that seems like something he would do.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely like, I guess this was an implication that I didn't fully articulate in my head about Shauna when she came back, that that like she married Jeff out of like guilt and shame and like had Callie to save the marriage, and she didn't really want Callie in the first place, and like that's partially what's like poisoned their relationship. Like I think that's something I didn't really think about. like I guess if I had to sit there and try to analyze what could have happened between the rescue and here that got us here, like I could have come up with that. But anyway, this scene like really put the exclamation point on like that is the point
Yeah.
here. Which is kind of interesting because I feel like um in terms of, well, I guess there aren't a ton of marriages among the Yellow Jackets. There's actually only two. Um, Among those two marriages, I think Jim and Shauna's is the healthiest,
Wow.
which isn't saying much. But you know, like under the circumstances, like it seems like they're doing as well as they could be. You know, like Jeff's
Yeah.
handling of these situations seems like about as reasonable as you could expect from someone, you know, dealing with such insanity. Um, Extremely supportive, definitely willing to put himself on the line, and you know, and say like, you need help, you need to go like figure some shit out. You know, it all feels very like, you know, like he could, there's a different version of this show where like he's an asshole, he freaks out and leaves, he goes to the cops. There's all sorts of like other scenarios I could imagine. So anyway,
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that the start of their relationship is so like toxic given how like relatively healthy it is for this show in the present, you know.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that, but I'm not gonna get into, yeah, because they're not really relevant. Just like, yeah, like Jeff's own psychology, like he really deserves to be in a better relationship. And
Yeah.
like what it means about a person.
Jeff's probably got guilt and shame as well.
Yeah, yeah. What's his, version of this? That he read those diaries, and you know,
Yeah.
like he's too patient. Like he has no, um so, what would Lottie say to him about like you deserve to
Hmm.
be with someone who appreciates you for the like remarkably I mean, it's like the viewer's not really thinking that because we want to be with Shauna. Like
Yeah.
Shauna's exciting
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and she's been through a lot, and I'm sure
Yeah.
that that is what he would say, but it's like
Yeah.
he's like he's got this sort of martyr thing, but not in that negative, like I'm always making myself a martyr of like I would do anything for this person who barely cares about me.
Yeah, without bitterness, you
Right.
know,
Right.
putting himself in that situation. If
Right.
you, it just
Like
if you,
even, yeah, like the scene over brunch with
yeah, Jackie's
Jackie's
parents.
parents.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. Which is extra interesting if he actually knows that they ate Jackie,
Yeah.
which is very possible. Anyway,
Yeah.
um,
I mean, the readers want to read, or the viewers want to read those
yeah,
dreams, but
it's yeah, but just compared to Simone, the way she reacted to Ty, like it's very different, you know.
yeah, and Simone is like understands she needs to look out for herself
Yeah,
and her
yeah.
kids.
Simone doesn't come across as unreasonable at
No,
all.
but that's my point. It's like, these are two different spousal reactions to being married to somebody who lived through some really fucked up and participated in some
Yeah,
really fucked up shit.
yeah,
And Simone knows that she deserves to not be dragged down into the pit of crazy, and Jeff doesn't.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Exactly. Yeah, he's jumping right in to the pit, if you will.
like he thinks that he can like buffer her from it or save
Yeah,
her from it or something.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
poor Jeff.
yeah. We'll see. We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. So then we go to Cabin Dream. Shauna's sleeping. Lottie is singing to the baby and holding it, and I guess actually feeding the baby. This is something.
Yes, we argued off mic about this.
Yeah, no, I on third review, I think you're right, and especially because it's a dream sequence, like we don't have to worry about the realism.
Yeah.
The idea that Shauna would fear this is totally reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the function in the dream of the not being able to nurse, which is common, very common, even for women who are able to eat normally, they're not in horrible starvation conditions, that they can't always the baby can't always latch. Women don't always produce milk. Um, so, but it stands in as I can't provide for this baby. And the one thing that the baby wants, I can't give. And so here we see Lottie, I argue, nursing the baby. The
Yeah,
baby is quiet for the
I
first
don't
time.
argue.
Yeah.
For the record, I think you're right.
Nursing the baby, providing for the baby in a way that Shauna cannot.
Yeah.
And this is like the ultimate, I don't know. I don't know. Not betrayal, but I don't know what the word is, but like taking, like really taking the baby to, like I'm gonna nurse this baby.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. There's definitely a theme in the show, in the flashbacks of like Lottie stepping in between various relationships. Travis and Natalie, Van and Ty, and now Shauna and the baby. Like, that's clearly a running thing of like Lottie creating some conflict between characters or characters about each other or whatever. Um, so anyway, Lottie says the baby's hungry and we need to feed. Shauna says, what? And Lottie says he needs to feed and you'll understand soon enough. Shauna puts the baby in the crib and goes back to sleep. So,
do you think we need to feed is like her subconscious knowing that the baby's dead and that they're gonna eat it?
I think it's actually more I think it's more her fear that they would eat the baby coming through. That like
Or
it's her fear that Lottie wants to eat the baby.
or her fear that Lottie wants to use her baby in some kind of
Yeah.
way to not necessarily eat the baby because that's not very much food anyway, but use the baby to build the power of the island toward getting more food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's also like a bit like the Jackie hallucinations from earlier in the season where, I think part of her is just thinking about like, they don't have a food source again. They're still
Right.
they're back in that place they were earlier in the season where Jackie like solved the problem for a bit.
Right.
But it's like where's the next meal gonna come from? And if I have to feed the baby, it has to come from somewhere, right? You don't just produce calories out of nowhere.
You know what is like if any moment through the disequilibrium ratcheted up the disequilibrium for this, it was this baby's gonna change everything.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You are you gonna show us that is true? Because you definitely did not show us that in this episode.
Yeah. I don't.
You're gonna change everything, baby.
I kind of feel like that's building up for this dream sequence, and it's kind of a fake outline, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's possible that the death of the baby is gonna lead to a change. I'll hold some possibility for that, but anyway. Yeah, it's a good point. I forgot about that line. That's yeah, I'm not so
I
sure.
thought about it until just now.
I'm not so sure that's gonna work going forward, but hey. Okay, you ready to so we go to the police station, outside the police station. Shauna gets in the car, tells Jeff what she told the cops. Jeff sees the gun in the glove compartment and says he's worried about Shauna, and she agrees that she's out of control. Jeff tells Shauna about Ty's call and Lottie's camp. Shauna thought Lottie was barely coherent. That's the word she used. So again, one more character is like talking about Lottie. She was, like totally out of it, completely incapable of founding a cult. And anyway, they hit that point so hard that I'm like, we have to believe it. But yeah, I think it's functional. Jeff tells Shauna that Ty's going, Misty and Nat are already there, and Shauna should go too. Callie gets in the car and says she used Shauna's idea. Um, aren't you proud of me?
Such a
That's-
good mom.
Oh man, yeah, it's really, yeah, it's really
I do think Callie would have come up with it on her own.
funny. Jeff says Sean is going to take a trip.
Yep.
Okay, transitional scene there. Okay. Back to Lottie's camp. Nat takes the fish out of the bowl and holds it in her hand, but doesn't let it die and feeds it. All right, just a little resolution of what happens to the fish. Um, then we go back to the cabin dream. This is probably, yeah, this is the big scene here. Shauna apologizes to the baby for not wanting it. So there's also a parallel here, I guess, with like she didn't want Callie, she didn't want this baby in the past, like, you know, almost like a we need to talk about Kevin kind of thing, you know, like blaming yourself for like the baby being having problems because it's like your attitude about it
Yeah.
influences it.
There's a
Like
lot of that. There's a lot of that.
it's like he doesn't want to eat because I didn't want it, you know,
Yeah.
like something like that. Anyway, she tries to get the baby to feed again, and he does. Sean is relieved. Nat comes in and offers some tea. We'll come back to that. She sees that the baby's feeding and she wants to tell the others, but Shauna stops her and Nat leaves. All right, we'll come back to the tea here in a
Because
second.
she wants to have that moment to herself.
Yes, yes. Um, that's all she's gonna get. All right. So near Lottie's camp, Van and Ty sit in the car. Van says, "If you see, here's Van again. If you see any barrels of Kool-Aid powder, consider me on call for extraction."
Classic Van.
Which, like, again, I don't know. It's like, didn't you drink some Kool-Aid? But maybe it's like, yeah, that's why I'm talking about it now. Anyway, then Shauna's van just passes right by them and drives into the camp.
I love that. That's
Really,
so funny.
really messing with my sense of the timeline where like the previous scene was Shauna's going to take a trip and they had already been driving there.
Right.
We saw them.
They're coming from a lot farther away.
Yeah, fair enough. But Misty and Walter drive there and we see them on similar.
Stop.
Okay.
Don't. It's like
I just think the timeline's compressed. That's
it's
all
like
I'm
the
saying.
Game of Thrones thing. It takes exactly how long it needs.
I know. It is kind of funny.
It's
The
very
way it's like almost played for comedy, which is a bit weird.
I think it's played for comedy.
Okay, so Shauna Zan passes them, drives into the camp, and they follow. So then we transition over to Lottie's camp. Uh, uh, Nat and Misty are there as Shauna arrives. Then Ty and Van arrive. They greet each other. Van sees Lottie by the lake, and Lottie slowly walks toward the group. And we get an overhead shot of the camp, and we see that they have the symbol, sort of the chairs and various things like organized according to the symbol design.
Which I did not notice, but I'm sure your listeners did.
Yeah, it's very question mark, you know. It's like
Mhm.
that thing. But
Yeah.
I realized like right away that like it's really not that surprising because they are already wearing necklaces with the symbol on them. So that like the symbol is an unofficial like or official symbol of the camp. So it's like, yeah, why not? Why not
Yeah.
put the symbol on that? But it's interesting, I think, to contrast the fact that she came to believe that it was all fake and shit in her head and
But
blah
she
blah
still
blah,
uses it.
but she
Yeah.
still uses the symbol.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I feel like there's a bit of a I feel like it really makes me think there's a little bit of a bait and switch there of like what they wanted us to think in season one colliding with what they actually want to be true in season two.
yeah.
You know,
I
like
agree.
in retrospect, maybe they shouldn't be using the symbol, but
I
they
agree.
already committed to it in season one, so they kind of have to follow through. Anyway,
Yeah, I agree.
I just think it's a weird note. But yeah, this is actually one of my favorite original music things that they do in the show. They have this like creepy acapella thing of like it's like oh I can't really
That
imitate
was
it properly,
great.
but
I love that.
it's just like this like eerie thing. Like they've
Yeah.
gone to it a few times, and they specifically go to it when Van sees Lottie and she walks towards them,
Yeah.
and it's like I'm not even sure exactly what it's implying. I guess it's connected with what Van was saying about I want to let the past be in the past, and Lottie's a schizophrenic, and they're all drinking the Kool-Aid, and it's like somehow bringing back the fact that like she was drinking the Kool-Aid in the old days, and and also like I think there's also a thing of like Shauna had to go because like she's freaking out. Ty had to go because she's freaking out. Natalie had to go because she was freaking out. Like, Van's got her own problems too. Like they have to. They're all like dealing with like their personal lives in such a way that like, why not go to Lottie's camp? We're all kind of desperate in various
Vin
ways.
seems like, other than the fact that she's having financial issues with the store, she seems like she's doing perfectly fucking fine.
Well, she was taking the
It's-
pills.
Oh, who isn't addicted to opioids in this movie? I'm just kidding.
All right.
That was really insensitive. I
All
apologize.
right. All right.
I apologize for the insensitivity of that. I'm also aware that there is disagreement about whether we should still, whether it's insensitive to talk about drinking the Kool-Aid. A lot of people did die at Jonestown.
Oh yeah.
And also, it's pretty insensitive to talk so loosely about the death of a baby. This is a fictional television baby. But yeah, I just gonna note that.
I just want to say that I'm just characterizing the way the characters do, like much like
Yes.
when Natalie referred to Lottie being in the loony bin earlier
Yes.
in the season.
Right.
Like that's not a term I would necessarily use, but it's a term the characters use, and that's what Van said. So anyway, whatever. Like
Yes.
this is I think characters from the 90s they would absolutely talk like this. I don't think this is unrealistic at all. And perhaps if the mics are off maybe I would accidentally let a comment like this slip occasionally. But yeah, if you have objections to it I don't think they're invalid.
Don't come here for sensitive critique of an empathetic discourse about mental illness.
That's very much not what
That's
this
not what this
podcast
podcast
is
says.
about at
Yeah.
all. Okay, so but yeah, it's a great moment. This is where we end things in the future. So
Yeah, Van walking toward Lottie.
yeah.
It's
For
good. It's good.
yeah,
It's a good
it's a
scene.
very it's a very I like when the show slows down sometimes and like really like wallows in a moment because I think it can really bring out like some strong atmosphere when it's doing that, and it's one of the things I like about the show. It's one of the things that reminds me of the early days of Lost, for example, when they would do stuff like this. It's like I enjoy when a show can like do things that aren't just about exposition or whatever, but about like holding a moment and like letting you decide what you want to think about it. And anyway, it was a good closing scene. So yeah, whatever negative things I have to say about the episode, I like this part. So
Yeah.
I just want to say that.
Yep. Me too.
Okay. So then we go back to the cabin dream, the final cabin dream, if you will. This is actually we're getting into Christopher Nolan territory because it's actually a dream within the dream
Yeah.
that happens here. Um, so Shauna wakes up and hears singing. Um, the baby's gone, and she looks at the tea. Right, it's implied that Natalie drugged her.
Mhm.
That's what this is implying. Like so they could take her baby and eat it. That's clearly like what the implication. I did not really catch that the first time, but like the second time it was like
That the tea
oh,
was drugged. Yeah.
yeah, that's what they were implying. It's obviously not true, but anyway, she looks at the tea, she goes into the main room and she sees all of them eating her baby. And we see individual shots of each of the not quite every I mean there's some of the minor characters they don't show, but most of the major characters they show with blood on their mouths, including the bad one. It's clearly the bad one, Ty. She's making the face. I swear that both of those actors playing Ty like know how to they do this thing where it's like obvious which one it is,
Yeah.
which is like I don't know what that is, but anyway,
Yeah.
I
they
just
nail
want to
it.
tip my hat to both of them for doing that.
Yeah.
the young Ty has been in other, like she was in the Leftovers also.
Yeah, she was great on
She's
that
like
too.
really a good actor. Anyway,
That actually, yeah, that actress is great.
it's really good they got her for the show because yeah, like Ty is a tricky character I think to pull off properly. And anyway, it was like 100% obvious that that's who it was. And also Coach Ben is eating. This is where we should have known it was a dream sequence, right? If Coach Ben objected to eating Jackie, there's no fucking way he was gonna feast on a baby after that. Like, no way in hell.
Yeah.
I don't buy it for a second.
Yes, yes, indeed. But we don't have to wait long to
It's
find
true.
out.
It's true. It's more or less right away. Um so um uh so then Shauna wakes up right where we left off with the fade to black, more or less. She was unconscious. She asked where her baby is. He didn't make it. Shauna says he was alive, describing stuff from the dream. The others look away in horror. Shauna says, "Can't you hear him crying?" The others walk away, except for Ty, who tries to comfort Shauna, and that's the moment we end on. So I don't want to get I don't want to get too highbrow for our audience.
I don't think
Is
you
that
can.
insulting?
No, I think your audience, you know, is already super highbrow. That's why they're listening to this podcast. So I think just go for it.
I believe that this ending to the episode is an allusion to King Lear.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, I strongly feel that.
Now you're
Now,
just too highbrow for me.
is it a conscious allusion to King Lear, or is it just the fact that Shakespeare did a lot of dramatic stuff that works, and therefore it sort of accidentally, or it's influenced by something that was influenced by King Lear? I'm not sure, but I'll just tell you. So at the end of King Lear, spoiler alert for the tragedy of King Lear, and Edmund and the bastard Edgar. Anyway, the other way around. Anyway, so sorry, it's a long title. Um, at the end of the play, um, through means that occur off screen, but it's sort of suggested. King Lear has three daughters. Two of them are bad. One of them's good, just to simplify things. And in the end, the he and the good one are captured, and the good one is killed, but then he somehow manages to get the drop on the guard and like carries her dead body onto the stage at the end after this like battle has occurred and so on. And he sets her down, and there's a lot of lines in the scene, other stuff that go, but one of the things is he's like, if she's still breathing, you can put I think he calls it a glass, but he means a mirror. You can put a mirror up to her mouth, and if you see fog, then she's still alive. And look, I see her breathing, right? Like, and then he dies. That's the ending of
Yeah.
King Lear, the character. It's not actually the ending of the play, but it's close to the ending of
Yeah.
the play.
Yeah.
Anyway, just this whole idea of this like, delusional parent with their dead child, saying like they're still
Yeah.
alive. Can't you hear? Can't you see? She's
Yeah.
still breathing. To me, it just feels like it's coming from the dead on dramatic place that thing in King Lear is. And so anyway,
Yeah, I mean, I think that I mean, illusions, intentional and unintentional, happen for sure. But I think regardless, it is reminding you of a famous example of a parent grappling with the horror of a lost child through, you know, deny, you know, being so deep in denial that they think they can hear, that they can see the breathing.
yeah,
um
yeah,
it's a horrible moment, and you are absolutely correct that it gets its punch from the emotional journey that she has gone on while blacked out. um
yeah.
it is a powerful scene. I know I shit all over this storyline at the beginning, but I do think it's a powerful scene. And
You dumped a
it's
shit
only
bucket.
that it's only that they had all these things leading up to this, that it was going to somehow connect to the power of the wilderness, that
Hmm.
made me disappointed that in the end it's actually just a character uh consequence.
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
seems. But I do think it's affecting.
Yeah. That, I mean, that was kind of my point, that this is like one of the most famous tragedies of all time. And I guess my other justification for the idea that it's actually an intentional illusion is that the first episode of the season was called Friends, Romans, Countrymen, which is
Yeah.
100% a Shakespeare illusion.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely could be. I also think there are probably quite a few examples in literature of this. I mean, there are reasons why certain stories continue to come up in tragedies written across culture and time, and I would imagine that the loss of a child is one of those.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it is powerful.
Yeah, so like I'm sure that King Lear isn't the first grieving parent story ever told. I'm 100% certain of that. It was like slightly closer
Yeah.
in terms of that specific, like, believing that
Yeah,
the
they told
child
it
is still
explicit, yeah.
alive while everyone else can see that's not the case.
Right.
That made it feel closer to that, but it is, of course, very possible that it's just you know, it's like a good chord progression or something. It's just an idea that works,
Yeah.
and therefore you can come up with it from various points of view.
Yeah.
But nonetheless,
But there is a similarity there for sure.
yeah, and they sort of close the scene on like it's like a soft closure, and they don't do a next week on thing like they had before. So they really like tried to lay out, and there's the sound continues like over the fade to black, you know, so it's very like stark, I guess. And so yeah, they really play up
Yeah.
the drama, the tragedy, the, you know, um and I think, yeah, I think on that level it's good. I mean, I think the performance is really good. Like this is a hard thing to sell, I think. Um and yeah, these actors have to do a lot in the show.
Yeah, it's
I'm watching it like, oh man, I would not want to have to play this scene. Yikes.
yeah, these actors are great. The younger actors are great. The older actors
Yeah.
are great. I like a lot about this show.
But yeah, I agree that it's disappointing. Like, you know, I mean, you know, who doesn't love Rosemary's Baby? I mean, uh, the implications, you know, going like it's I think it is very lost in the sense that it sort of mystified a plot that they never had any intention of really mystifying,
Right.
you know, and it like it almost feels like a bait and switch, like they dragged us along and made us think that there was going to be a thing, but really like it was just going to be a simple character story about like
Yeah.
surviving a pregnancy in the wilderness. Like
Yeah.
there wasn't going to be, they weren't really going to follow through on all of that weird stuff.
Yeah.
And which, yeah, is a letdown, but I do maintain my earlier opinion that in a way I'm glad that we dealt with it so that like we can progress to other things
Yeah.
finally.
Yeah.
And I think if they were going for the storyline, like I think they played it probably about as well as they could, for, you know, assuming this is the way it's gonna go. So yeah, I think it's just that like it's not really the storyline I wanted, but whatever. You know.
Yeah. And I've seen shows like that before.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Definitely.
Maybe we will revise some of these opinions next week.
Yeah,
We
we'll
still have
see.
some time to build on some of these things.
We'll see how they pick it up. We'll see how they
But
pick it
there you
up.
have it.
How much you want to bet that they talk about it like with adult Shauna now that like the story has progressed enough that we actually know? Like I bet it comes up now.
Yeah, it's a classic move.
Like
Yeah.
you heard it here first. I feel like they're gonna, if they don't talk about it next week, then I feel like they'll talk about it before the end of the season.
Yeah.
Like there'll at least be some lines about it.
Yeah. I can see that for sure.
Uh,
Well, I think it's funny that this was my least favorite episode, our least favorite episode, and it's our longest podcast so far.
is it really?
I think so.
It's longer than the last one? The last one was the longest one so far.
Well, maybe this is a trend.
Oh man. All right. Well, hey, so thanks for joining us. Yeah, we'll be back next week with whatever it's called. I don't look at the titles in advance.
Next week it's going to be Ooh.
Ooh.
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
Qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? Yeah. So we'll be there. You'll be there too. Hang in there. Hang in there.
Hang
Why,
in there.
why am I saying
Hang
that?
in there, kids.
Hang in there, kids. I don't know.
Hang in there, kitty.
And until next time,
Buzz.
buzz, buzz, buzz.